This is the best game I've ever played. This is the best game ever made, in my opinion. My previous favorite game was Breath of the Wild, and Breath of the Wild is not a perfect game. I mean, it was like as close as perfect as to being perfect as you could get with Breath of the Wild, in my opinion. That was my favorite game until Elden Ring. I have spent like over 400 hours in Breath of the Wild, and I've gotten to the point with Breath of the Wild, like at first, like I had that feeling, kind of like Skyrim, where in Skyrim, I just like never got to the end of the game. I never thought I would see the end of the game, and I never did in Skyrim. Like I never beat it, but I've played so many hours of that game and like explored the world and like I know there's still so much to explore in that game because it's so big. Breath of the Wild, I had the same feeling there. I was like, I am never going to see the end of this game. I am going to like never explore everything. But in those 400 hours, I feel like I have explored every possible, like everything that I wanted to do. And that kind of brings me to the flaws of Breath of the Wild. Like everything that I wanted to do, I did. Like I did all 120 shrines, and then you get like Korok seeds, which I didn't like. You know, I don't see the point of like putting 900 collectibles in the game. It's like, so you have a reason to explore the world, they put these Korok seeds in the game. And here's my hot take with Breath of the Wild. It still is, it was my favorite game before Elden Ring, before playing Elden Ring. That is my favorite game now. But in Breath of the Wild, I always thought it had some flaws. And some of the flaws, first of all, let's talk about the dungeons. The dungeons are the best part of a Zelda game, arguably. Like, it's the most fun you're gonna have in a Zelda game is in the dungeons. But that wasn't the case in Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild was more focused on like the world, and they came up with shrines, you know, shrines instead of the dungeons, where you can like go down into these shrines and have like some puzzles, and it's like a mini dungeon. And my opinion is like you could get rid of the shrines, like get rid of the 120 shrines, get rid of the Korok seeds. You don't need 900 Korok seeds. Give it like, do something like Elden Ring, for example. In Elden Ring, you go around the world, and like in Breath of the Wild, you had these special shrines where you just fight against an enemy, like a kind of hard enemy. It could be really hard. And you beat the enemy. It was a combat shrine, right? And you beat the enemy, you get some item, and those are really cool. And that's basically what you're getting with Elden Ring, except like you're getting like a whole, you explore the world and you see all these little caves and little areas and mini bosses and like so many things to fight, and it's always fun. The shrines in Breath of the Wild are not always fun. You're like doing puzzles you might not want to do. You're not like just fighting bosses and like fighting things. Like arguably like everything you need to do in Elden Ring, like you don't need to do it, but like stuff around on the sides, like whether it's a cave or like you're just walking through the world and you see this giant enemy, like a giant bear or something comes and fights you, like that was fun. That was fun to face. And in Breath of the Wild, it's not like all fun. It's like, I don't know, this is too deep into it, but basically I love Breath of the Wild so much, and I love Elden Ring more. Like I think there's just like more optimizations of what you're doing in the game compared to Breath of the Wild. Like what you're doing I don't think is always fun, because like I said, like the Korok seeds, and I didn't even get to that, like the Korok seeds in Breath of the Wild are kind of like tedious, you know. You're just like going out of your way to try to find these things, and you have to use a guide to like find them all, It's not like something you want to do. Like, I did not want to do that after 400 hours. But in Elden Ring, it's all like gameplay. Like you're just like going around the world and doing these things. And what I would say in Zelda is, this is the first time I'm talking about Breath of the Wild on this channel, by the way. And like I've wanted to talk about Breath of the Wild for a while, but the dungeons are the best part, right? And there were only 4 dungeons in Breath of the Wild, and they were not the focus of the game, and they weren't the best part of the game. But usually in Zelda games, the dungeons are the best part. So what I would say is, like, get rid of the shrines, get rid of the Korok seeds, because they become tedious after a while. It becomes like just like something you need to do, and not like this fun like dungeon where you like explore and you like solve everything, like solve the puzzles, and like a boss at the end, and you get like a new dungeon, you get a new item in every dungeon, and then you use that item in the dungeon. That was completely missing in Breath of the Wild, and that is such like a good thing. Like, I love that part of Zelda. And that's another thing too, like I'm saying like 8 dungeons, right? And spread around the world. You still have an open world game, but more of a focus on the dungeons. And like, you could just get rid of shrines. I don't think shrines were that big of a deal. And yeah, like the dungeons should be the focus, you know, like Zelda dungeons. So anyways, if we compare this Breath of the Wild, because Breath of the Wild is my previous favorite game, this is just like out of the games that I've played. Like, I haven't played a lot of games, but when you take Elden Ring and you want to compare that to Breath of the Wild, right? Once you get to Ganon's castle, once you get to like the hardest area in the game, that is like this big open castle area to explore. It's like a dungeon, but it's like, it's not focused on puzzles. There are some puzzles here and there, but they're kind of things that you've dealt with before. It's more focused on like hard enemies. There's some mini bosses. There's just like really cool things to explore, some lore around. And then you have like the final boss in the middle. So like, imagine that, but you have multiple castles around the world. You have multiple Ganon's castles around the world. That's kind of like what Elden Ring feels like to me. Like, each castle you go to in Elden Ring is like Ganon's castle. It's like this big open area to explore, and you have all these challenges, and you even have like warp points like between them. You have these the bonfires in the game are called Grace, and you touch Grace, and I love that. I love how you touch Grace. It's kind of like touch grass. And Elden Ring is just like, I wouldn't even compare it to Breath of the Wild, because it is such a different game. It really is Dark Souls. You know, it's everything you love about Dark Souls, and it's really a culmination of everything. Elden Ring is really bringing all of their worlds together. Maybe there are some influences of Breath of the Wild, but it's not that huge. Like, it's an open world game. You know, it's everything an open world game is, and that just works beautifully with Elden Ring. It just works with Dark Souls. Like, you're going around and you're encouraged, right? You're like exploring the world in Elden Ring now, and you are just encouraged to keep exploring, keep going through this world. And how they do that is they put new mechanics, but it's still Dark Souls, it's still Bloodborne, it's all of these things put together. You can see influences from Bloodborne, you can see the Dark Souls games obviously are the biggest influences, but this is a Souls game. Sekiro is there, like, you have the jumping mechanic, but you also have totally new mechanics in this game. Like, you have a horse for the first time, and without this horse you would not be able to traverse this world. Like, this world is so huge, you need this horse. And horse combat, it's like, it's not the best, you know, like, but it is like, you can kind of cheese enemies with the horse. You can kind of like kill enemies with your horse and like run away when they're about to hit you. You can do this against like really hard enemies. You can like cast a spell and then like run away with your horse and then like run back and cast a spell. But you can fight on the horse, which is really cool. It's not like the greatest part of the horse. The greatest part of the horse is you get to traverse faster. You get to like explore this world, and without the horse you really can't, because it's so big. It is such a huge world, and it's just like filled with things to do, filled with like tough enemies, and then you stumble across like a mini boss, you stumble across like a full-blown boss as soon as you start the game, right? As soon as you start Elden Ring, you get out into the world, you are faced with an optional super hard boss, because he's on a horseback. Like maybe you could fight him with a horse and that would be easier, but you don't start with the horse. So what I thought was like, this is probably the hardest boss in the game, because I like right now I'm bare bones, like I'm starting the game, and if I just fight this guy with nothing, like I didn't actually level up, I didn't do anything yet, I just fight this guy, and it took me so many tries to beat this guy. I was on him for like 5 hours and then I beat him. It was such a satisfying thing to beat him at like bare bones. I was like a low level, I started as a vagabond, and later on I started streaming the game as a vagabond, and then later on I created this other character to test something out, and I didn't talk about the flaws at all in the game. I have two major flaws, and I'll bring those up briefly, but they don't detract from like the overall experience. You know, like I'm not focused on the flaws here, but they are in the game, and they are kind of glaring. And let me just go over the flaws real fast. I know I'm kind of like ADD brain, like going from topic to topic, but I have a lot to say about this game. That like a lot of stuff has happened. Like this has become my favorite game, and I can't stop playing it. I can't stop thinking about it. I want to watch other people's streams. I want to watch people's playthroughs. I want to watch like their entire VODs of like playing this game, but I can't, you know, like I can't do that until like I experience everything myself, and that's what kind of sucks. You know, that's what kind of like kills viewership a little bit, because people are like, I'm playing this game, like it's one of the best games ever made. It's definitely game of the year, game of the decade, best game ever made in my opinion. Like literally so good, like literally my favorite game. So yeah, the two flaws, after saying all that, number one flaw, frame drops. You know, the frame drops, sometimes it was the only time I even realized it, you know, was fighting that first horse boss, which is kind of weird. I like the positioning, like this is right when you start the game. There probably shouldn't be frame drops right when you're starting the game, but then they were like non-existent. They were not throughout the rest of the game. My other huge problem with this game was the invisible enemies. You know, I don't think everyone was getting this. I didn't hear anyone complaining about this, but enemies were just invisible. They just go invisible sometimes, and it sucks, because like you're just like playing the game and you don't realize like there should be an enemy there, but it's just invisible. You can't see it. It's definitely a glitch. It's definitely a bug. I really hope they patch this. I don't know if anyone else is facing this, but I've been facing this so much. It's not there all the time, so I don't focus on it that much, but it also like adds to it, because when you in some parts of the game, enemies actually do go invisible. So you don't know at that point, like, are they invisible enemies? Are they supposed to be invisible, or is the game just bugging? And that was like the major bug in my game, like in my playthrough. The major thing, that was the one thing I didn't like, was the enemies just disappearing sometimes. Like I couldn't see the enemies because of this glitch, this bug. But that's it. Like this is like a perfect game. This is my favorite game again, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I can't stop playing it. I don't want to stop playing it. It's so good. This is the best game I've ever played. This is the best game ever made, in my opinion. From Software games are on another level. They are on a different, better quality level of games. You know, when you play a From Software game, you know you are getting quality. You are getting a good game, an amazing game. And Elden Ring is the biggest one ever they've ever done. They've said it themselves. This is the biggest game we've ever made. Just in scale, it's the biggest. It's their best game, in my opinion. It's the best game I've ever played, in my opinion. And you are getting that From Software quality through and through with this game. It's amazing. I love this game. You could say like Breath of the Wild is defining games, like influencing other games to like create games like Breath of the Wild, you know? Like Genshin Impact, for example, it takes a lot of influence from Breath of the Wild. People were saying it was copying Breath of the Wild. There's like Breath of the Wild clones out there, games where you can like climb around the world, and it's like this open world, open air game. But Dark Souls games aren't just inspiring other games. Dark Souls games are inspiring a whole genre. They're called the Souls genre. There's a Souls genre of games where indie developers try their hardest. They try to, not only indie developers, even big developers, indie developers are trying to make as close as they can to a Dark Souls game. There was Mortal Shell was an indie game made to be just like Dark Souls. There is so much influence there. Dark Souls spawned an entire genre, and Elden Ring is the best you're gonna get at the moment. Like From Software themselves are gonna make the best possible Souls game, and then you have everyone else in the industry, and like, for example, look at God of War. Look at the new God of War. There's so much influence there from Dark Souls. Look at Star Wars Jedi The Fallen Order. There's like a Dark Souls Star Wars game. There's a new Final Fantasy Origins game. There's a Final Fantasy Dark Souls game coming out, and I am so excited for that. This Souls games are genre defining. They created like a new genre with these games. They're so good, and I think that's amazing. From Software, when they decided to create Demon Souls, they were saying, oh my god, video games today, they're too easy. And they were, you know, in the NES days, a long time ago, games were so hard. They were so brutal difficulty, where like, if you lost, also, this is just on top of it, if you lost, you had to start over. If you lost all your lives, you had to start over. And it was just on another level of difficulty at that time, years ago. And you couldn't save at those times. Like there was a password or something, like you couldn't like go in from a save point. But anyways, the level of difficulty of video games was so much higher. And From Software, on top of creating this genre of Souls games, they said, let's make a really, really hard game, you know, Demon Souls, and then Dark Souls, and then all their other games, so hard. And like the world was like, yeah, like they listened and they're like, yeah, we really want this. And then all the games started being really hard. Like everyone started making really, really challenging games, and I think it's awesome. I love the challenge. I love Souls games. I love Elden Ring. So I haven't beaten the game yet at the time of writing this section. I am about 150 hours in, and I'm starting to feel a little burnt out, to be honest. I will beat the game before I finish this video. And I started this video saying that each castle is like Ganon's castle in Breath of the Wild, but I don't really think that's actually the case anymore after getting to some of the later castles. I was saying that because I played the first castle, and the first castle was actually really amazing. I feel like to play this game, you need to use 100% of your brain, and you need to try your hardest so that you don't die which can be a lot sometimes. I found myself needing to take lots of breaks and playing some other more relaxing games like Vampire Survivors or Slay the Spire. I think these breaks were important to fully enjoy the game. This burnt feeling only set in after being over 100 hours into the game. I was hooked in the beginning and I couldn't stop playing in the beginning. The way I play games like this though is when I really enjoy them, when I really enjoy a game, I go out of my way to do everything that I can do. I like to explore the whole world and see everything there is to see, and that's why it's taking me so long to beat this game. 150 hours is more time than I spend on most games, period. So the fact that there still is so much more for me to do in Elden Ring is really impressive. I probably will eventually beat all of the bosses and explore all of the underworld and overworld, but I am taking my time with it so I don't get too overwhelmed with the game. So that Final Fantasy Origins game that I was talking about, the Final Fantasy Dark Souls game, it came out and I played the demo and it seems good, but it's not even close to the level of quality of Elden Ring. So I'll probably play that after I beat Elden Ring. Okay, so let me make one more section here. Let me close out this video and let me say that this section I am recording right now, what you're hearing right now is my opinion. I am talking from the year 2024 now. This is current day. I feel like I should add on to this video because I just watched it and my opinions of this game have like totally changed. It's actually December 31st today, 2024, so it's literally like 2025 tomorrow. It's like basically 2025 at this point. So this is like my opinion after playing or like knowing about Elden Ring and playing it like throughout like 3 years after its release, and my opinions have like totally changed. Like I've been saying it's my favorite game, and like the biggest part of that, the biggest reason why my opinion totally changed is because Tears of the Kingdom happened. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, like I would say now that is my favorite game. Like when I am saying I love this game so much, and like I do, but like today my opinion is just like totally different because, you know, like look at just look at the number, the hours. Like when I was talking about this review, making this review, and let me talk about the review first of all. I feel like if I was saying that I want to beat this game first before I release this video, and I'm just feeling at this point, if I wait to release this, I'm just never gonna upload this video. So I just want to release this. I just want to like have my Elden Ring review up. I still have not beaten the game. There's still like a lot to do. Now there's the whole Shadow of the Erd Tree that came out. Maybe I'll do another video about that in the future. I still haven't played that. But my opinion is like vastly different today from like that time of recording this. All of these sections 2 to 3 years ago. Because Tears of the Kingdom, like I've played Tears of the Kingdom a lot more than Elden Ring, like more than double. I think it's a lot better than Elden Ring, and like Elden Ring I still think is like my second favorite game. It goes like Tears of the Kingdom, Elden Ring, and then Breath of the Wild. But like I just think Tears of the Kingdom is like so much better that it like brings Elden Ring down, I feel like. So I just feel like I had to add that because like throughout the whole video here I'm saying like this is my favorite game. This is my favorite game ever made. But like actually today it's not anymore. And when I like look at those hours, like when I'm talking in this video, I'm saying like 150 hours. I played like 150 hours of this game. I'm like, there's so much left to do, this and that. And then I had the section where I was like, I'm burnt. Like I don't feel like playing this game that much anymore. That's kind of how I left it. That's kind of how, like, I didn't like go and like play this game like hundreds of hours more. No, I didn't. I just like left it there. Tears of the Kingdom? I'm like over 500 hours. Like more than that. Like, yeah. Like I don't know if my opinion of that will change tomorrow, probably. But that is what I want to leave it at. This still an amazing game. Not my favorite game. Tears of the Kingdom I think is a lot better. Yeah. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Please follow me on all my socials and leave a comment, like the video, and thanks for watching.